Former Ambassador Scott Brown may be busy right now with his band, Scott Brown and the Diplomats. But if Trump were to win another term in the White House, we could see Scott Brown in a different role. Here's our 101 conversation from Milwaukee. Mr. Ambassador, a lot of the people we saw at the RNC this week, former presidential candidates, all came out in unity to support former President Trump. You had a lot of those folks out on the Seacoast meeting New Hampshire voters. How do you think the former president now connects to New Hampshire voters who are still undecided or, maybe voted for Joe Biden in the last election?
Well, I think they should watch the convention. You're seeing a whole new type of convention. It's unified. You have people from all walks of life, working people, minorities, wealthy, poor, and they're doing their very best to communicate a message of, last night it was obviously safety and security of our country. I mean, we have the open border, millions of people are coming in, our cities are obviously straining with the resources that are being used to support a lot of these things. Yeah, he's going to have to continue to work, not only him, but his surrogates and everybody else. And I think what's going to happen is people are going to weigh, what was it like in 2016 when the presidency started for Trump? And you had the secure border, we had low inflation, we had low gas prices, low food prices. Your kids weren't obviously staying at home, they could buy a house, versus now. That's really the issue. So I'm hopeful that they focus on those types of things and not kind of the petty rhetoric that you're hearing.
And obviously you spent a lot of time with foreign policy when you were the ambassador. When it comes to the Trump foreign policy, do you have concern about NATO, about Ukraine, about Israel, Hamas? How do you view that?
Well, obviously, but not for his efforts, as evidenced by the Secretary General of NATO. They wouldn't have increased their numbers in terms of financial support, and as a result of that, they are stronger than they have ever been. Number one, Israel, Hamas. Listen, I've been to Israel twice. I encourage anybody who doesn't get it to go and visit. And what Hamas did is barbaric, and they have hostages. We don't know how many. They need to return the hostages. This thing could have stopped months and months and months ago. I commend the president for supporting that. He was the first one, after all the rhetoric from previous presidents, both sides, who actually put the embassy in Jerusalem. So there's a lot of good things happening in that regard.
And what about the VP pick, J.D. Vance? How do you think he fits into, what that foreign policy may look like?
Well, it doesn't really matter because he's not the president. He's going to do whatever the president says, and after, I'm sure he'll have his say, but ultimately the president's going to make his decision. And his foreign policy, last time, we weren't in any wars. We weren't supporting any wars. We were getting out of Afghanistan. It's not the turmoil that you see really around the world at this point.
And then back at home in New Hampshire, when you look at, the election, it's been 20 years since a Republican has actually won the state for the presidential race. How is it different this time?
I think really it's about the economy. It's about the border. It's about illegal immigration. It's about inflation. I mean, I do all the shopping at Market Basket. I'm like a speed shop. They say, "Here's Scott." I go in 10 minutes I'm out. I know where everything is. And, I'm putting stuff back. I'm using coupons. I go in the Portsmouth one, they have a section in the vegetables. There's basically like a day left. I buy that stuff, and I can afford it, but I buy it because, listen, I don't want to waste my money. And that's what people are looking at. They're looking at their pocketbooks and wallets. They're looking at the national security issues. They're looking at what's happening in Manchester and other cities around with people that are not from here, getting things that basically they don't deserve, and Americans who need and deserve these things aren't getting them. And that's really what it comes down to. That's what I'm hearing all over.
And you hosted so many people out on the Seacoast, during the New Hampshire primary. Do you think, since we saw the assassination attempt, rhetoric will come down across the political board, or do you think we are just kind of stuck in these polarized times?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. You don't need it. You just got to talk about the issues and these types of things.
And then lastly, look, you obviously served as the ambassador last time Trump was president. If he gets back, I know you're very busy with Scott Brown and the Diplomats, but could we see you back in the administration again?
When any president asks, you obviously say yes. So if he asks, yeah, of course I'll consider it. There's been word, hey, Homeland Security, I'll shut that border down in a second, and I'll work with Congress to find solutions. But that's not up to me. That's up to him, and it's really premature. He hasn't even won yet.
But that's something you would do, Homeland Security Secretary?
If he said, Scott, I want you to be doing dishes in the White House, I'd consider that. So it's premature at this point.
Ambassador Brown, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks. That does it for this Sunday here from the RNC in Milwaukee. Adam Sexton's back in studio for Close Up next week. You can always get the latest political information anytime on WMUR.com and inside the WMUR app. Have a great day.